Good evening, everybody. I would be John N7NWL. I'm making notes because Patrick came in. Welcome to the April 6, 2023 CADXA membership meeting. A couple of things we're going to do tonight. We're going to vote on the constitutional amendment. We're going to have a presentation on the picnic that's coming up in May. We're going to do some other things. Also, new member recognition. We have 4 new members. Our newest member is Mike, W7MXR, who joined tonight. Okay. Also over the last month or so, Sid, K5 X-Ray India joined, Alan, November 7, Uniform Juliet Juliet, Bob, November 7, Romeo Whiskey is also a new member. We're going to do introductions. I'm John N7NWL. We're going to start off with Gary.
Gary from Scottsdale, KT7CS.
Mike from Phoenix, N7MW.
I'm Ned from Phoenix, AA7A.
I'm Steve, N7TX from Carefree.
Steve, K7 Sugar Papa from Phoenix.
Ron, WA0KDS, Phoenix.
Jim, KC1BB from Maricopa.
Mike, W7 Quebec Sierra, Flagstaff.
Mike, W7MXR, Apache Junction.
Brian, W7JT Mesa.
Patrick, WD9EWK Scottsdale.
Walt, NJHG Glendale.
Norm, N9AB Sun City.
Bob, K7 BHM Chandler.
Ron, N7RD Sun City West.
Bill, Alpha Alpha 4 Quebec, Scottsdale.
I'm Virgil, K7VZ.
And if our Zoom guests would take a moment and introduce themselves, please.
Mike, KC7B.
I'm Jim, N7US in Illinois.
Paul, N3PS in Sun City.
Hey, Tommy W7EK, are you still there? We'll go with a maybe on that one. Okay, the next thing, Arturo WB7ATA passed away recently, and I'd like to just have everybody stand and we'll take a moment of silence and remembrance, please. Thank you. Go ahead and be seated, please. Arturo's actually been a member of the club since I think 1977-ish. So he's been a member off and on for about 45, 46 years or so. And I know he was big into Arizona soda and did a bunch of other things also. What I'd also like to do, I've been talking with Mike W7QS, who's the president of the Northern Arizona DX Association up in Flagstaff, about a couple of things, and Mike and I agreed that I would like for him to come down here and speak briefly about the Flagstaff Hamfest that's coming up on July 15th. And Mike, I will turn it over to you, so come on down.
Yeah, my name's Mike Hanks. I'm the president of the Northern Arizona DX Association. I'm down tonight. I've been talking to John and some of the other folks, Ned and other folks. We're trying to get a Hamfest going in Flagstaff. We're knee deep in it right now. It's going to be July 15th. We'll run it from 7 to 3 p.m. in the afternoon. We've got a social dinner Friday night on the 14th from 4:30 to 6:30 at the West Side Sizzler. We've got a web, flagstaffhamfest.org has all the particulars on it. I've got flyers tonight. If anybody would like a flyer, I can definitely get one to you. We'd really appreciate support any way we can get it. We've got quite a few speakers lined up at this point, spanning EME, SOTA, POTA, Aries, HF on 10 meters, antennas. Of course, the ARRL will have a presentation. We've got Jim Zimmerman doing his Morse code key presentation, mesh network, amateur TV. We're running VE exams. The ARCA annual meeting will be up there. And the repeater owners meeting will be up there also. So check us out on the web. And if anybody's interested, I've also got some raffle tickets for the grand prizes. The grand prizes consist of an ICOM 7300, a Comet CA500 Mark II SWR analyzer, antenna analyzer, and a LifePo, a 50 amp hour LifePo 4 battery is our three grand prizes. So at the break or at the end of your meeting here, if anybody's interested in some tickets and some flyers, I'd be happy to get them out to you. Does anybody have any questions? Anything I can answer? No. I've told the rain gods that day is not a good day for us. It's at Sanawa High School. It's right off of I-40 there on Butler Avenue. We have a map and that kind of thing on the website. So real easy to find, real easy to get to, tons of parking. We'll have interior vendor space, exterior tailgating area. And like I said, a bunch of breakout rooms for the speakers. So it's really kind of starting to gain some speed. We're getting kind of excited about it, and I'm cautiously optimistic we won't lose our rear end. So anything else? Well, most of the time they don't like me, so I'm appreciating that. But yeah, no, thanks for. I am definitely. Yeah, I was actually talking to Reinhardt and Ingrid, they're also members of the Northern Arizona DX Association, and they kind of filled me in on, because they said, wow, you got that call, that's awesome. And obviously I had no idea, and so yeah, I'm real honored to have the call. Anything else, gentlemen? All right, I'll turn it back over to John. Thanks for having me this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mike. I appreciate it. I'll check that one off the list. That way I don't get too confused. Program time.
So I'm going to talk briefly about this. I apologize for Mark not being here. I've been working with him since about September of last year. He's an immensely talented and capable individual. And as you'll see, he's leading this thing into the future. So I don't know what kept him from being with us tonight. I know he's made this presentation all over the country, but I'll find out. It's hopefully not serious. Let me briefly remind people. I'm sure many people here know what it is, but many, surprisingly, we're discovering do not. So let me pretend that nobody knows what it is. What the CQ Marathon is or DX Marathon, we're calling it, is an annualized DXCC sponsored by CQ Magazine. And it's got a very simple premise. You work each available DXCC once, you work each of the 40 CQ zones once, and that's your score for the year. And it's actually very similar, by no accident, because I introduced it when Tom had the activities and I had it for a while. Now Tom's got it back. And while I had it, I introduced our own version of it. So people who have been participating in our own marathon are very familiar with how this program works. The main difference between what we've been doing and what the official program does is because it's sponsored by CQ, we have these extra entities, extra countries, European Turkey, Shetland Islands, African Italy, Bear Island, and the 4U1VIC, which usually is on the air as 4U1A, which is the Vienna Information Center, whatever it's called. Very active station, very easy to get. But it's not considered a DXCC. It's considered Austria for normal cases, just like 4U1WB is actually United States. But other than that, it's straight up work the countries, work the zones, and away you go. And the other thing, you can go to the website, and I'll give a link at the end of the presentation, very easy to remember. There's many categories to choose for, and that's important. For example, K7SP has been limiting himself to a relatively small station. K5ML Mickey has, he's in HOA land and he's had to limit his station. Well, both of those can find a category that suits them. They can be very competitive in that category because everybody else in that submits logs in that category have the same limitations. So it isn't like you have to have a 70-foot tower to be part of this. You can be part of this with whatever station you have. You just have to basically match up what you got with what the requirements are. But unlimited is the most popular. And it's easy because you don't have to think about anything. So that's really important for some of us here. Also, there's other stations, for example, VE3 VEE is a very, to me, famous station in this category. And if you look up him up on QRZ, you'll find that he's got like a huge 20-meter monobander on a 100-foot tower out in a farm somewhere. And he just competes in the 20-meter category every year. He still finishes in the top 5 of all scores worldwide. He's an amazing operator, but he's a 20-meter specialist. Well, there's category for him. So whatever your interests are, excuse me, and whatever you limit yourself to voluntarily or involuntarily, there's an entry category that fits your operating style. So you don't have to worry about competing with, some mammoth contest station out east. What it is not, and this is the sticking point. I actually find that it's been difficult to interest AOCC members in the marathon. Over the years, I promoted it off and on, even before I became associated with it, because I've always liked it. But because it isn't a single weekend, it's sort of an odd duck as far as contesters are concerned. They like the rush of a sprint where they have 4 hours or whatever the particular contest is, or one weekend, and then they're done. And they can spend the rest of the time enjoying their life, cleaning up their station wherever they want. Well, the marathon is annualized. And so it's really more geared towards regular DXers. And that's by no accident, as you'll see momentarily. So the contest every year starts at 00 Zulu on January 1st and finishes at the last second of the Zulu year on December 31st. Another thing that's not is not a conventional DX award program. So this isn't worked all Europe that's sponsored by the Germans. This isn't work all prefectures like in Japan. And CQ has its own separate DXCC-like program. This has nothing to do with that either. There's no lifetime achievements, and every year is a new beginning. If you want to do 20 meters only in 2024, you can decide to do that. If you want to do digital only in 2025, you can do that. If you want to just compete everywhere, you can do that. It's an annual decision, and you can make your decision when you turn in the log. One year I was looking at the data and I thought that I would be real clever and do a digital only transmission. I had to throw off several countries because I didn't have them work digitally. Well, it turned out everybody else had the same idea. So it was actually didn't work out very well for me, but I might have won in that category in another year with what I had. And just bad timing, I guess. But the point is, whatever you think is advantageous or whatever you're interested in, you can do that. What are the nice aspects of running on the DX Marathon? Well, the most important single thing about it is you can pursue it while you do your regular DXing. I've got some special augmentation of my usual sources so that when spots come up, I can figure out whether they're important for marathon. And frankly, what really happens is a lot of my marathon takes place in January and February. I frankly work England and Germany and Gibraltar and all those places that are relatively easy because they show up in my spotting network, and frankly, they clutter it up, which is what I designed for myself. So I work all that stuff and get it out of the way. And then after that, it's not that much different from your regular DXing, especially, if you're like at DXCC Challenge 1000 or 1500, if you're at that kind of level, and a DXpedition that we just had, like the 9X5 RU operation that's just finished today, you're going to want to work it anyway, right? Because you probably got band slots to fill. So if you work it, well, that happens to already count for marathon. So it's only a little bit of incremental effort to put in a marathon, to work the marathon in addition to what you're already doing. And the other thing is it also turns out that unless you want to finish in the top 20, which is a realistic objective, W0RAC and myself both have top 20 kind of scores. So it's very possible from Arizona to have that kind of result. But if you don't care about that, if you just want to use it as a sort of a gauge of how well your DXing is going year by year, which is an excellent use for it, you can turn in about 3/4 of an annual score just by working a quarter. When I first competed in this, I decided to do it in the last quarter of 2013, and I got a score that was only 10 or 20% below my full year score. It's just the way it works. I mean, there's the expeditions that happen in June. If you don't work in June, you don't get that country because it was rare enough that was the only one that year. But a lot of places aren't like that. And so you can get a pretty good score in a calendar quarter. But again, by far, I'd say the way I would recommend it to most people here would be a way to measure year by year improvement in your DXing skills. And by the way, if you're a club log user, if you notice carefully, there's a little radio button that says 2023. And if you do that, it gives you a pretty easy way to keep track, at least of your raw score for both countries and zones. And you still have to deal with those other 5 entities, but that's not a difficult correction. I'm going to give a brief history here. It's my best understanding. I'm not the best expert on this, but much of the impetus for this came from W9KNI. You might remember, especially if you got an older version of his book, as I do, that he devoted a whole chapter to the question of what happens when you get to the top of the honor roll. What do you do next? And he gave an answer, and frankly, I wasn't very impressed. I don't think he was either, because some number of years later, he helped come up with this. Now, I don't know if he did it all by himself, but he had a lot to do with it. And this is something you can do. And again, that's one of the nice things about it as well. If you're sitting at 2 short of the honor roll, or 10 short of the honor roll, or over 2,000 in the DXCC challenge, day by day, week by week, there's not necessarily a lot for you to work. Well, this gives you something to do and keep your skills sharp, which is what he was interested in. And I also note that he himself has won in several categories over the years. But meanwhile, for 17 years that this has been running, till literally this just ended contest year, 2022, K9EL, whose call some of you may recognize, John Sweeney, has single-handedly done all the heavy lifting. He's done a lot of the, some of you may know about the helpful hints that we publish. He's done that pretty much single-handedly, and he's done all the scoring, and he's manually done it. And frankly, I can't believe what he did. It is one of the great feats, the great unsung feat in ham radio that he's been doing this all this time. But last year, he announced that he was going to retire, and I ended up being part of the group of 5, including Mark, that are going to replace him. We have a webmaster. I'm going to do the scoring. We have a communications manager whose basic job is to pull the helpful hints together. And we have a liaison with CQ. So we've got a fairly big crew, and it really did take all of us to replace what John was doing. Absolutely amazing what he has done for us all. Another thing that's perhaps of some interest is that it's growing. I don't have everything in front of me. I pulled this obviously together at the last minute, but I can tell you, because I am involved with the scoring of this thing now, that 2022 was a vast increase over 2021. Now, part of that was because 2021 is still impacted by COVID, 2022 less, but it's also that we had a lot more entrants, particularly from Indonesia for some reason. I'm writing a bunch of software to expedite the scoring of this contest, and I tried it against the 2021 results. So like I had the key to the test, right? Because that contest was already graded by John. So I wrote code that processed 140,000 QSOs. And then this year it was going well enough that I gave him a little bit of assistance in scoring this year's contest, which is now completed. And that had over 200,000 QSOs in it. So you can see even in 1 year, that was a pretty good jump. Although I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, the number of people entering the contest has obviously gone up as well. And I don't know why he wasn't able to come here tonight, but Mark has been promoting this all over the country. And so because of that, we expect this to, I think it's already pretty well established, but I think that it's going to become bigger. It's going to become a bigger deal. It's going to become something that more and more of us are going to be interested in doing. Let me talk briefly about how to enter. It's a kind of a peculiar thing in the fact that you pick one QSO for every country. So if you contacted England 100 times because you did a little contesting, great. You only get to pick one. And what I do, and one way to do it that's fairly easy, is I screen scrape my club log results. Again, club log for this is very, very good. One of the nice things about club log is that there's a lot of calls out there that are funny, and you might find yourself using it. For example, one of the horrible calls from a scoring perspective is R2022NY. It's a call that's activated in New Year's Eve in Russia, and it's active for about a week before and after the New Year. And it's terrible because your logger, my code, somebody else's logger, nobody parses that. You have to enter it as a manual exception. But for one reason or another, people enter that into their score every year. So we got to be ready for it. Well, club log will tell you whether our 2022 NY, whether it's in European Russia or Asiatic Russia. Hey, if you're going to turn that one in, you better figure out which it is. And club log, I mean, we have our own score and we don't always agree with club log, but club log is extremely accurate. You will lose, if you use club log to determine what the DXCCs and the zones are, you will lose very, very few points. And I've done that before I started the scoring thing when I had much, much less capability than I do with all the software I've written. And I had very accurate results using club log. Another thing that you can do, if you get halfway serious about it, you don't have to do this at all. But if you're serious about your score, and if you're irritated by score reductions, one of the things you can do is keep track of QSOs that were actually confirmed by somebody. It's a well-known fact that pirates do not upload their logs to club log or LTW or EQSL or any place else. So if you participate in any of those electronic programs, they're all about equally good. As far as if it's confirmed there, your odds of that being disallowed are very, very low. And in fact, I've had very good scores for a lot of years, and I do that in part because I do keep track of those things. But you don't have to. You'll just have a few extra deductions. And so that's why, because of this peculiarity where you get to pick one and only one QSO, it is a little helpful to confirm them if you can remember, if you want to take the trouble to keep track, or at least, stuff that's been uploaded. So that's really kind of the way to turn it in. And basically you have several days at the end of the year to get it together. There's facilities online. I'm not going to go over it now, but it's basically the way it works right now is there's a tool that takes an ADIF that you custom create with the one and only QSOs, and it loads it into an Excel spreadsheet, and we process that. If you're interested, if you want to find out more, if you want to look at the history, here's the web address. I encourage you to go out whether you participate in the contest or not. This is a wonderful resource. There's a lot of scores and history out there, and it gives you a surprising amount of insight into what's going on. For example, COVID really did a number on DXing. I think we all kind of know that. Well, somebody who comes in 5 years later is going to be able to go out to this website and see. They're going to watch the scores dip down. Because amazingly enough, the sunspot cycle has some effect on scores, but less than you might think. And so all that stuff is out there available for analysis. And you can get a pretty good idea of the state and health of DXing in a given year just by comparing the historical scores one to the other. So I encourage you to go out there and pay some attention to that once in a while. Might tell you some things about what's going on, at least broadly, in DXing. So that's all I have. And if any of you guys have questions about it, feel free to email me. I'll answer what you can. And I'll get you in contact with somebody with better answers if I can. So that's it.
Okay, thank you, Larry. I appreciate that. One quick follow-up, not to the DX Marathon, but Ned would like to talk a few more minutes about a couple of things.
Could you point a browser at ncdxf.org? Yeah, I'm going to announce a project that has just kicked off here that's sponsored by the Northern Cal DX Foundation. The picture to the right, click on it. Okay, click on that image on the right. Yeah. Okay, what you're seeing right now is the deployment of the radio in the box system out on an island, an uninhabited island in French Polynesia. Some of you might have worked FO/AA7JV last week. It was probably me. I have the rare and distinct privilege of being the first DXpeditioner to work DX while in my pajamas. This is an amazing system, right? You can, this picture on Northern Cal DX, ncdxf.org. If you click on this picture, you can zoom in and you can see incredible details, of 4K image. That trailer is deployed by the boat. George, AA7JV, developed his boat to launch that thing. And what that thing carries are the radio in the boxes to shore. He can set this station up in 10 minutes. Right now we have 3 radios on shore, 3 antennas. One of them is KW level for HF bands, 80, 40, 160, and that's what George and the other operator on the boat use. The other 2 radios are run by remote operators. I'm one, N1DG, Lee has got on, and others. And currently it's limited to the Northern Cal DX Foundation board. We're expanding that a little bit. But the whole concept here is that we can put together a DXpedition with nobody on the island, no food, no tents, no potties, and it's a environmentally acceptable to many islands that deserve to be activated on the air. The 2 radios that are currently used by the remote operators are at 100-watt level, and the antennas are basically base-tuned verticals. And you might think, well, what the heck can you do with that? Well, I'm running Foxhound 3 streams for 4 hours nonstop through the night on 17 meters, working Europe like you cannot believe. This would have made Bouvet a success. Okay, this is the answer to a lot of the questions about, how do you activate rare places which are environmentally protected, or where it's too expensive to have an army of 15 people occupy the island for a period of time. This is the solution. Let me tell you what you can do with this. 2 days ago, I had one of the 2 stations on 6 meters, and I was beaconing away and doing something else. And I looked over, and I had 9K2NO calling me. I worked him. I worked 9K2GS and 9K2DR. Changed their life. They each sent us emails saying, "What was that?" Okay, so this is an amazingly high performance system. This is not a joke. This is real. So this system will be hopping islands all summer long. So I'm going to be in DXpedition mode forever. Okay, this is the way it's going to be, guys. All right, this is really game-changing stuff. So just give you a little heads up. There's a generator. It runs 24/7. They come and fuel it every day. George expects to spend $100,000 in fuel in the next 7 months, but George can afford it. I mean, the boat that he developed to deploy this, he built himself. I think it's $7 million or something like that for the bed. So cool stuff.
So I'm sensing we ought to think about maybe buying one of these. I've got a truck. Okay, thank you, Ned. I appreciate that. That concludes the meeting unless anybody else has anything. I do have one question I want to ask of the group here just for representative stuff. Are there any other questions from the Zoom members? Okay, everybody, thank you for coming in on Zoom. I appreciate all of that. Everybody here, thank you. I appreciate it. Wait, let me get the gavel. I remembered it. The meeting's adjourned.